We have breaking news this afternoon. A verdict has been reached in the Millete murder trial. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Anna Laurel. About 30 minutes ago, we learned the jury had reached its verdict. We'll have team coverage all night breaking down this decision. Let's start with our Kelly Hezadal. Kelly has been following this case closely from the start, actually for years now. She joins us live from outside the courthouse with the very latest. Kelly?
Yeah, and I think we were all absolutely stunned. That email from the court went out at 2:27 this afternoon. It had just 4 words on it. There is a verdict. So some of Maya's friends were here in the parking lot. They started kind of going crazy. They got Mary Chris on speakerphone. They were telling her. So she is rushing down here as we speak. Now, when the verdict is going to be read, it sounds like within the hour, but we haven't received official word yet on exactly when it's going to be read. But I can tell you, people are rushing here to the courthouse. I saw just moments ago the defense team, Larry's defense team, go in. They had very serious, somber looks on their faces. Larry's family just walked into the court a short time ago. His dad, we asked him if he had anything to say, and he said, trust in God. We also saw several members of the DA's team coming down here as well. So it has been quite the rush here this afternoon. I mean, the jury really only deliberated for about 6.5 hours total. So about an hour yesterday. They came in at 9 today. They seemed like they were in good spirits. They ordered in lunch. They had some pizza. And then again, at 2:30, we got the news that they had reached a verdict. So a lot happening here at the courthouse. As you can imagine, the energy out here very high. Anna?
Kelly, a fast verdict. A verdict reached within 24 hours for a lengthy criminal trial. This has been going on for weeks. Is often viewed as more favorable for the prosecution than the defense. Now, it's not a guarantee, but part of that is because it doesn't take that long if they're already in agreement, right? That someone is guilty, that the evidence is strong, so they feel strongly about that. Now, a quick verdict can also help the defense because there might be something that the jury felt like was missing, and they're all in agreement to that. So we're just not sure. What have you, I know you've been speaking with attorneys in the months leading up to this trial. What do you think? What's the sense that you get?
Yeah, and that's always the big question. If they come back early, is that a good sign for the prosecution or the defense? And I've been told it really can go either way. However, if you think about it, this just really indicates that the jury was probably processing all of this evidence as they were listening to it over the past 8 weeks, taking all this in and kind of forming their opinion on what they believed based on the evidence. And perhaps it just didn't take that long, I guess, in that jury deliberations room. They apparently were all on the same page, one way or another. We're just going to have to wait and see.
And I think that it's interesting because yesterday you described how Larry's defense team was outside in the parking lot. They seemed in good spirits. Are they different today than they were yesterday?
Oh, night and day. To be honest, I think, like I said, everybody is very shocked that it happened this quickly. I was told through the grapevine that the prosecution perhaps was thinking maybe Monday or Tuesday. So I'm sure it's probably even stunning to the prosecution that this verdict came back that quickly. But yes, it was a night and day difference between the defense team yesterday and today. Yesterday, they were out here high-fiving each other, hugging each other. Today, when they walked in, stone-faced, walking straight by the cameras, not saying anything.
Now, I know we still have to wait. The court does give people time to get there, the attorneys time to get there, and to get everybody, the ducks in the row, so to speak, before they bring the jury back in. But I know a lot of people are logging on. We've been tweeting this out and shooting it out on social media and on the CBS 8 app, so people might be tuning in. Cameras were not allowed in the courtroom for this trial. You have been there. Let's walk back through the past few weeks. As you just think about some of the high points, the strongest testimony, take your time. Just tell us some of I can think of your daily reports. It was shocking, some of the details that were coming out. So if you can think back on some of the times that...
Oops. Sorry, Anna, my IFB's falling out there.
Yeah, well, like Kelly just told us, everything is so last minute. This is unexpected to come back so quickly. So we're glad that you're there in the parking lot. But just give us a little bit of a timeline through the trial, some of the high points to you, the things that were really so memorable.
Did you say, I'm sorry, Anna, 1 second. Is it family you said that you think? Yeah, we just saw Mary Chris walk into the courthouse. I just wanted to let you know. I mean, people have literally, I've seen them running down this walkway here behind me to get inside. I mean, they're going to give people time, obviously, to get here, but I think people were just worried that somehow they were going to miss something. But as far as what you asked me about my take on the evidence and what was striking during this trial, I mean, I really think the strong moments, especially for the prosecution, the strongest evidence they have is Larry's behavior after Maya disappeared. You know, there was that 12 hours that nobody knows where he was. One of the witnesses testified to the fact that his phone, typically he was using it like every 5 minutes. So how do you explain that he just disappeared for 12 hours and kept his phone off that entire time? So I think there were a lot of questions about the days surrounding her disappearance, particularly after she disappeared. Those were high points for the prosecution, certainly. But I think that the defense's strongest point came in during closing arguments. I mean, to be quite honest, Leanne Sabatini, the defense attorney, she made a very compelling, strong closing argument to the jury, basically raising doubt about all kinds of things like, you know, we just don't know. We don't even know exactly if she's dead. We don't even know what murder weapon was used. There are just so many unknowns in this case that we don't have answers to. And so she really was playing to the doubt, in her mind at least, the reasonable doubt in this case, and just the fact that there are just a lot of unanswered questions still.
And we'll have to find out how that argument by his attorney really landed with the jury, or had they already kind of made their decision with all of this other circumstantial evidence. You know, they really tried to paint the picture. There isn't a body. Right now, we don't know what happened to Maya. And so that, we'll see, is that in the end what the jury leaned on?
Well, and one thing I really thought about yesterday during closing was the fact that I kind of wondered if the defense went a little too far, you know, going as far as calling Larry the victim and saying he was the one who was abused. You know, maybe the jury was with her for some of these other points, but I kind of wondered, did she go a little too far with that? How, on the other hand, maybe that's exactly what they were thinking the whole time, too, is there's just not enough evidence there. There's no proof. And maybe they already had reasonable doubt. You know, we just don't know.
Have you seen the prosecution attorneys go in yet? Have you seen them go into the courthouse?
Jay, have you seen? No, he has not seen it. Jay said he's keeping an eye here behind me, but he said no, he hasn't seen the deputy DA go in quite yet. We've seen quite a few of law enforcement as well as other members of the DA's office go in, but I have personally not spotted Deputy DA Christy Bowles, but I imagine when she gets here, she will be rushing in as well.
And then you said Mary Chris went in behind you. Remind people who that is.
Yeah, Mary Chris, Maya's sister, her older sister, kind of the mother to the family, who has been with this investigation, with this trial, with every thing that happens in this trial, every step of the way. Mary Chris has been here. She has been the spokesperson for this entire case. She spoke to the media very early on in this case to really bring attention to the fact that her sister was missing, and I think that really got the police investigation going, and really she made sure that the police took this seriously. But yeah, they have been here every single day of the trial, sitting there in the front 2 rows, the whole family. A very, very tight-knit family, and as you can imagine, they are very anxious to hear what this conclusion is.
That's right, because that is a good reminder for people. This was a missing persons case. This was a missing mother, a missing wife, a missing sister and daughter. For months this went on until Larry was actually arrested.
Yes, he was not arrested for 9 months after, 10 months almost after Maya disappeared. So there were just a lot of things that were brought up in the meantime. You know, they searched the Millete home more than once, but there was always kind of these lingering questions of, you know, why wasn't more done really early on, you know, potentially if there was other evidence within that home that could have been found. I mean, they did search the home and they didn't find anything significant, but you still have to wonder, with so much time that went on, what could have possibly have changed.
Because I believe that he was, in that 12 hours that he is unaccounted for, we're able to search and have highway cameras and surveillance cameras all over the county, but they only keep those records for 90 days, and they didn't search for that for him until months later. Is that right?
Right. And I mean, it did seem from some of the testimony that the police didn't really dig in and start going hard on really looking at him as a potential suspect till at least 3 or 4 months after she was already gone. I mean, they pulled what they could. They pulled the phone records, they pulled what they could. But to this day, as you know, Anna, her phone is still missing, and her phone certainly would have been a key part of that evidence. And, the prosecution says that's also in itself, the fact that her phone is missing is a huge deal because what happened to her phone? It just magically disappeared. I mean, the defense would say, well, her phone is with her and we don't even know that she's dead. But yes, I think the phone evidence, the digital evidence in this case made a huge difference.
Did they ever say what was it that made them turn their sights toward Larry and really start investigating him for something deeper here?
I don't know that we know the specific point. I mean, I think from the beginning there was always a bit of a suspicion, but perhaps when they started looking more into the emails, into the digital correspondence, that kind of thing, perhaps that's when they really started honing in on him. But, it's tough to say. They didn't actually give us an exact timeline of how this all came about.
Yeah, once they started seeing what his searches were on his computer, he searched for how long does it take a body to decompose, all the searches about the hemlock and the spellcasters, and I'm guessing that's what focused their attention.
Yeah, and especially, once again, just the timeline after the fact of what he was doing in the 12 hours after she disappeared. I showed you guys that surveillance video yesterday that was brought up during the rebuttal by the prosecution, and Deputy DA Christy Bowles was saying that scraping noise, they had to boost the audio considerably to even hear it. But that's her theory, is that was Maya stuffed inside of a cooler, being dragged across the garage and then being put inside the family's SUV.
Kelly, I know you've spoken with Maya's family many times. Have you ever spoken with Larry's family?
I have talked with them a couple times here at the courthouse. I will say, they've been here at the courthouse every day as well. His parents, especially, his Aunt Kathy has been here as well. They sit quietly. They're very respectful. He's proclaimed that his son is innocent. I think he's proclaimed that since day one, and has even said, I've asked him myself, did he do it? And he said no. But yes, I'm sure they're upstairs in the courtroom feeling very anxious as well at this point.
And where are their 3 children?
So the 3 children live now with Mary Chris's family, the oldest. She's 15 years old now. The youngest, Lazarus, I can't remember exactly his age at this point. I know he was around 5, so I guess he's about 9 years old, 10 years old right now. But yes, the family, I've heard them talk many times about what a transition it was to bring them into their home. Because initially, it wasn't the smoothest ride. It wasn't like they just opened up their house and the kids went running. It's been a very complicated journey for these children. And so to see where it could go from here, we just don't know yet.
That's right. They were so young, and Larry took them on a trip into the Grand Canyon. Talk to me about that again. That was that really stuck out in my mind when I heard that.
Yeah, this was a trip that was taken about 3 weeks after Maya disappeared. They left at about 11:30 or 1:30, in the afternoon, drove straight to get to the Grand Canyon. They arrived, around 11:30, 12 o'clock or midnight or so, and then left the Grand Canyon at around 1 in the afternoon the following day. So imagine taking 3 young kids on a car ride that's like 24 hours long and then turning around to come home. I mean, Christy Bowles called it a weird trip to the Grand Canyon, and her speculation was that he crossed that area. There was an intersection on the way there and on the way home where there was this desert-like area in kind of the Lake Havasu area where she said that the family had visited before, and so her belief is that he went there to check on Maya's body and then went to the Grand Canyon, came back home, and obviously he had to have a reason for going there. He couldn't just tell the kids, hey, we're going, out to the desert or whatever. So her speculation was he told them that they were going on this trip to the Grand Canyon, so that didn't seem quite as suspicious.
As she's making, these are, like you said, these are her theories based on what we do know and trying to fill in the blanks a little bit. What was the jury, when they would hear these theories, this explanation by the prosecution, do you think that was landing? Or did they see, it's hard to say. I don't know if they were stone-faced or were they receptive? What do you think?
A lot of them have poker faces, I will say that. I mean, we've gotten to see them over the week. So I will say there is one juror, this woman who is very friendly looking, and she's always kind of smiling and nodding anytime anybody's talking. So she did that quite a bit throughout the trial. But other than, I've seen some of them kind of sleeping occasionally, but for the most part, I have seen them be very attentive. There was a guy I talked about yesterday. He always sits forward in his chair, leans in as both attorneys are talking. He seems very attentive. A lot of them are taking notes generally, but yes, I think that it's tough to say what they're thinking at this point. We just don't know.
What was Larry like yesterday as his defense finally was able to, okay, here's our story?
I'm sorry.
All right, Kelly, you know what? I think what we're going to do. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize my IFB keeps popping out. I need to readjust it here. But yeah, what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to let you go because I want you to get inside the courtroom. What was Larry's demeanor yesterday before the jury finally got to go?
Well, his demeanor before, well, I will say during closing, during the rebuttal, there were moments that he looked like he was getting emotional. His face was very red, that kind of thing. As I've told you guys before, he always tries to make a point to make eye contact with the jury. I asked Gretchen von Helms, the defense attorney I talked to this morning, about what goes through a defense team's mind, what goes through a defendant's mind at this point, especially when you're so close to a verdict. And she was saying you do try to make eye contact, you do try to make some kind of connection to remind the jurors that this is a person, that this is a life too, and this is a real person whose life is going to be impacted greatly by your decision.
Yeah, and the lives of those 3 children and everything else has come up to this point. Okay, Kelly, we're going to take a break. We're going to let you go inside the courtroom, and we'll check in with you later this evening. Thanks so much for all of your insight. And you stay with us. We'll be right back.